What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. And you guys know how the left has this narrative that the illegal immigrants, the undocumented workers, they're just doing the jobs the lazy Americans won't do. Yeah, that's a fake talking point. So I want to go ahead and crush that narrative. I have an op-ed from CIS.org. Evidence shows immigration reduces wages significantly. So this is a talking point that's commonly used by the left to justify Joe Biden's disastrous border policy. And so we're going to get into that. There's a lot of stuff we got to get into. But before we start the show, I actually want to start out with this article. It's actually some good news for a change. It's a hat tip to Revolver.news, and it's highly respected pollster Richard Baris believes Trump supporters should be over the moon happy right now. Yeah, I agree. Trump fans should be on cloud nine at the moment. Their guy is not just leading the GOP primary, he's dominating it, leaving all his rivals eating his dust. And that's not all. He's also taking the 7 swing states by storm, easily beating Joe Biden in each one. And they got an interactive poll by Bloomberg Morning Consult right here. This was actually pulled from X, formerly known as Twitter. And here are the numbers. Wisconsin, Trump 49, Biden 44. Pennsylvania, Trump 48, Biden 45. Nevada, Trump 48, Biden 40. Georgia, Trump 49, Biden 41. Michigan, Trump 47, Biden 42. North Carolina, Trump 49, Biden 39. Wow. Yeah, these are pretty bad polls. And you know what? I don't want to put too much faith in polls. You know, the polls haven't really done us a whole lot of justice these last few elections. But I will say this. When you look at a 10,000-foot view and you get a generalization of the polls, you can kind of see the direction the polls are going. You could see where the momentum is going. And listen, all these polls the last few months have been giving Donald Trump some serious momentum. So that's a good thing. So you can at least have a little faith in that. But as far as, you know, having so much faith in these polls that Donald Trump is winning by a landslide, I don't want people to get complacent. You know, my America First patriotic listeners out there, you know, we got to stay in the battle, man. We got to keep fighting. This ain't over. And in all honesty, it's not even over when Donald Trump gets elected. This fight, this battle we're in for truth is going to be going on for a long time because we got a lot of damage that we have to repair. But like I said, I will say it is definitely a good sign of momentum, seeing these types of numbers. And in all honesty, I mean, Donald Trump really doesn't even have to campaign. He can run solely on his last administration. So, like, his previous presidency is his best campaign strategy. And I think we're going to look back on these days. We're going to look back on Joe Biden winning the 2020 election as the best thing to ever happen to this country. Yeah, I know, you know, it's sad that the American people, we're all suffering like we are. And, you know, the global conflicts, the southern border crisis, the inflation, the economy, the soldiers in Afghanistan, the soldiers in Jordan. Yeah, all these disastrous events took place. However, I think we can probably pull some positivity out from it in hindsight. Because without Joe Biden winning the election, the American people wouldn't have had their eyes opened to this Washington swamp, to just how bad this fourth branch of government actually is. And, you know, the American people would not have the stark contrast between a Joe Biden presidency and a Donald Trump presidency. It's going to be crazy when one day we can say that Joe Biden's greatest accomplishment was showing the American people just how good Donald Trump was. Because I can't see anything positive coming out of the last 3.5, 4 years. They want to talk about the economy, but it's a lie. The reason why, and we discussed this months ago, the reason why they're picking the economy to run on with this whole stupid Bidenomics thing that they just, you know, they finally figured out it's not a good idea because the economy sucks. The reason why they pick the economy is because it's the easiest to lie about. It's the easiest to fudge the numbers. They can manipulate the data, and they can essentially lie with statistics, like that book. I don't know if any of you read How to Lie with Statistics, but it's essentially what the Biden administration is doing. You know, they tell you, oh, inflation is going down. But what they don't tell you is they're not including housing, they're not including energy costs, and they're not including groceries. Those are actually pretty big factors when you're factoring for inflation. And so this is what they do, and this is why they went with the economy. So the article goes on here, U.S. politics is a whirlwind right now. Richard Baris, a top-tier pollster, believes that Trump supporters have every reason to be over the moon. The Biden regime's attempt to destroy President Trump with their sham trials and political attacks is falling flat and failing at nearly every turn. Yeah, that is true. And here is some audio of Richard Baris on Real America's Voice. Here, check this out.
Everyone's argument against Donald Trump has fallen away. The electability argument DeSantis tried to make, and now Nikki Haley is trying to make, has evaporated. The legal case, the argument about, with the lawfare strategy, the indictment strategy is failing. It's collapsing. So if you're a Trump supporter, you got a lot to be happy about here, Jack. You really do. I mean, let's face it. It's hard to get Donald Trump. This is like the real Teflon Don. And he just has this enormous ability to do two things. One, that would kill any other political candidate. And yet still he remains viable. And then two, to win. To win against all the odds. And there are even challenges against Jack Smith. Now, there are complaints filed against the appointment of Jack Smith, whether or not that was appropriate outside of the arguments that the Trump campaign or the Trump legal team has been making. And I'll tell you, if he does succeed in pushing any of these back toward the election, then that's it. It's a total W for him, because the Justice Department cannot prosecute a sitting president. That is long-standing policy, Jack. They're not going to change it now. And even if they did try, he'd well be within his authority to vaporize the investigations anyway with the stroke of a pen and be over. So, and by the way, he wouldn't have to care about the blowback the way he had to care during the days of Robert Mueller, because he wouldn't be facing any other re-election concerns. All of that would be out the window. So if you're a Trump supporter, it's a huge W, and all voters know this already, and yet you still see his strength in the polls the way he did, the way we have in the last couple of hours.
Boom. Yeah, this guy, Richard Baris, really is good, and he's pretty solid when it comes to polling. Now, there's still a lot of time, folks, so anything can happen. And this is the thing that worries me with this administration, is that the more Donald Trump goes up in the polls, the more desperate this administration gets. What are they willing to do next? I have no idea, but we have to expect everything. We have to expect that there's nothing they're not willing to do in order to get Joe Biden across the finish line. And in fact, my kind of theory that I've been formulating the last 48 hours is that these conflicts in the Middle East have a lot to do with getting Joe Biden across the finish line, because as we all know, the American people have a tendency to vote for the current president in times of war. So is this administration getting us into a major global conflict out of the question to get Joe Biden across the finish line? I don't think so. Look at what they've done so far. I mean, really, these people, they have done some of the most egregious stuff that we've ever seen in this country. Some of the most unprecedented things to ever happen have been done to Donald Trump. When it comes to impeaching, partisan impeachments, not once but twice. When it comes to indicting former presidents of the United States, SWAT raiding his home, you have 4 separate trials with 91 indictments. It is clear and obvious what they are trying to do. Everybody knows it. Their side's not even trying to hide it anymore. I mean, they're coming straight out and hoping and praying that one of these trials gets a conviction of Donald Trump so that he loses the election. Folks, that is election interference by way of lawfare. Okay? That is weaponizing the justice system to interfere in a federal election. So there's nothing that these people aren't willing to do to get Joe Biden across the finish line. And honestly, not even that's working. Like Alex Baris said, it's all falling on its face. You have the case in Washington, D.C. that is gone. That has no date that has been canceled. So you have all these things happening, and so you have to ask yourself, are the American people starting to wake up? I think so. I don't know how else to put it. When you look at polls that say 70+% of Americans say this country's going in the wrong direction, you can chalk this up to a lot of different things. You can chalk this up to Donald Trump having an amazing presidency, and now people are starting to see the stark contrast between the two, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. You can chalk it up to people just, exhausted of, the antics and the tactics from the Democrat Party. You can chalk it up to the southern border. You can chalk it up to the economy. I mean, just go down the list. It's one thing after another after another. And so, like I said in the beginning, if not for Joe Biden winning the election, we wouldn't be here right now. Donald Trump would be finishing out his second term. He'd be gone in 9 months forever, never to run for office again. And the American people would never been able to see this fourth branch of government that's been created over the last 70 years, 80 years. And that, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is more important because that has lasting effects. We are at a point now to where if the American people don't gain control back of their country, then this place is going to run this country into the ground, and we are going to go the way of the ancient Roman Empire. We have a lot of the same things that happened during ancient Rome's fall are happening right now. An over-industrialized military that is outstretched throughout the region, which we are. You have open borders, free migration into the Roman Empire. What do we have? Open borders. So you had a migration issue then. You have a class separation where the rich ruling class elites essentially are virtually unimpacted by the rules that they are implementing. Class separation, you have the poor and the rich elite. That is it. No middle class, no small businesses, nothing. No blue-collar worker. And so we're watching the fall of the United States. Is it inevitable? No. I think the American people are smart enough. This is exactly what Winston Churchill talked about when he said he admired the United States for the people's ability to pull the country back over the edge on the precipice. At the precipice, do the American people find the will to change and pull this country back over? It's, I'm paraphrasing, of course, and I don't think that's exactly what he said, but it is something along those lines. And he's right. The American people are not dumb. Like, they know what direction this country's going in, and they know what's good and what's not good for this country. And I think now that people had a chance to see Joe Biden and see what a complete and epic failure he is, now they're like, okay, Donald Trump wasn't so bad after all. And so I think, like I said, one day we're going to be able to say that Joe Biden's greatest accomplishment was showing the world just how good of a president Donald Trump was. That is going to be really poetic justice right there. So to get back into this article, Richards hit the nail on the head. Trump's foes can't make any accusation stick. First off, we're hearing Big Fanny might be in hot water over her fling with a married man she not only hired, but also showered with an obscene amount of cash before treating herself to swanky vacations and other high-end perks on the taxpayer's dime. And yes, I read into this situation with Big Fanny Willis. We talked about it. I researched it. And since then, she's come out with a deposition, I think, for the judge. I can't remember what it was. The judge wanted an answer for all these accusations. And it's awful for Big Fanny Willis. She doesn't deny it. I mean, let's just say the excuses she used to try and justify what she did are ridiculous, and they're never going to fly. And so I don't know what's going to happen with that case. And then back to the article here, and now Jack Smith's day just got worse. One of his key cases has been yanked from the court schedule with no return date in sight. This is the D.C. case. This is the case that they put all their eggs in. They said this is going to be the one that brings them down. Well, on Friday, Judge Chutkan passed the deadline to announce a new schedule for the case. And so most likely this case, I mean, it's got to go to oral arguments on the appellate court. Then it's got to go to oral arguments on the Supreme Court when it comes to this presidential immunity. And so Judge Chutkan froze the case indefinitely until there's an answer from the Supreme Court. And I think that's I don't know when that is. And so this probably isn't going to happen before the election. And this is their lawfare. This is one of their biggest strategies, folks. And forget about what you read on the leftist media outlets. The leftist media is trying to formulate this narrative that, Donald Trump's going to end up getting convicted some way or the other. They're going to make it happen. They're putting all their faith in a corrupt justice system. Like, that is where we're at now. The leftists and the Democrats are putting all their faith that the justice system just gets corrupted enough to get a conviction, regardless of the truth. This is a weaponized justice system, and people don't like seeing this crap. And look, it's not good for Joe Biden right now. But like I said, I don't want people getting complacent. Sometimes they release polls as like a psyop to get people complacent so they don't go out and vote. So we need to stay on our heels, keep your heads on a swivel, and most of all, just keep telling the truth. It's working, folks. Keep doing what you're doing. We don't have to come up with narratives. We don't have to come up with talking points. All we have to do is show the truth. That is it. And people are starting to see it. So keep up the good work. So back to the article, almost done here. However good this news is, nobody can afford to get too comfortable. That's so funny. There's a tough fight ahead. But as things stand, President Trump is surfing a massive wave of American support. The good folks across the nation haven't forgotten what he's done for them, especially as they're currently dealing with the Biden regime's nightmares. The contrast between the two men couldn't be starker. That's crazy. I did not read this article beforehand. So me and Darren Beatty on the same page on this. And it's not just me and him. We all see this. We all can compare and contrast Donald Trump and Joe Biden. These frauds, these Washington swamp creatures are trying to convince the American people that what they're witnessing now is normal. And in all reality, it is normal. This is what the American people are used to. They're used to high inflation. They're used to living check to check. They're used to foreign conflicts all over the world. I mean, there hasn't been a time in my life where our military wasn't in some type of foreign conflict in the Middle East. That is insane. I'm 36 years old. And so this is the normal that they're trying to get back. This is why both sides hate Donald Trump. And this is why I love him. They hate Donald Trump because he actually fixed things. So for instance, Donald Trump actually fixed the southern border. Was it perfect? No, but it was the best southern border we had in like 50, 60 years. They hate him for that because now they don't have anything to run on. Do you see how these people operate? This is why both sides hate Donald Trump, because he actually fixes problems, which is very unusual. It's in a way, it's abnormal for Americans, but it's actually what normalcy is supposed to look like for a prospering nation, is the nation that Donald Trump gave us for 4 years. That was normalcy, but not their normalcy. Right? This is their normalcy. This is what they want to keep. This is what they want people stuck in. Foreign conflicts, disparity, inflation, broken economy, a broken immigration system, broken southern border. They like these dividing issues because they like keeping the people divided. If they don't keep the people divided, there's no point for them. Their job is finished. Everybody knows this. We've been saying this to one another for years. If people were united, then these people wouldn't have a job. And they know that, and that's why they hate Donald Trump, because he actually fixes issues. If the leftist Democrats didn't go apoplectic, if they didn't lose their freaking minds back in 2016, we wouldn't be here. They say Donald Trump created all this chaos. They are the merchants of chaos, folks. They're the ones that created all this mayhem. Donald Trump just came in and he said, look, I'm going to get the job done for the American people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fix the economy. I'm going to fix the southern border. I'm going to stop allowing other countries to take advantage of us. And Democrats and the leftists were stabbing him in the back, trying to impeach him and imprison him the entire time. And so they are the merchants of chaos. This is what they do, man. They accuse their opponents of what they themselves are guilty of. And so right there with the poll numbers, you can see that the American people are starting to catch on. They're starting to catch on to this stuff. And I don't know about you, but we could sure use another 4 years of Donald Trump, man. Definitely. And speaking of the southern border, I wanted to get into what is going on in Boston. So here is a story from Fox News. All right, this came out 3 days ago. Boston residents rage after governor closes community rec center to house migrants. This is bad on so many levels, folks. When you're closing down rec centers in low income communities, you're going to get crime. You're going to get chaos. This is the unintended consequences of Democrats' bad ideas, right? Sanctuary cities. And then when they actually turn into a sanctuary city, it's complete bedlam. I mean, they always put other people's interests before Americans. This is the problem with the Biden administration. Majority of Americans are tired of coming last to everything. We always come last when it comes to Ukraine. It's like I explained this to somebody on Twitter. It's like, Joe Biden is fixing the economy and putting Americans first. It's like, wait a minute. No, in fact, everything else comes before Americans. So, like Ukraine, their border comes before Americans' border. China comes before Americans. You know, it's like Joe Biden. I've never seen an administration prioritize almost everything before America, like over America. Like, this is crazy. Like, you know, it's one thing after another. And so the southern border crisis is obviously a big issue. It's on a lot of exit polls right now. It's a big issue for people, and you're getting ready to see why. And so Massachusetts residents are none too happy about Democratic Governor Maura Haley. I think that's her name. I don't know. Healey. Maura Haley's decision to temporarily close a Boston neighborhood's community recreation center to shelter migrants. Quote, they don't care about us. They only care about their agenda and their political careers at our expense, Sean Nelson, a former city council candidate, said Thursday on Fox and Friends. I wonder who he's going to be voting for in 10 months. The Melnia Cass Recreation Center in Roxbury reportedly offered a skating rink and places to exercise, providing a safe space for the community's youth to fraternize. Without it, parents are concerned young people may find themselves in trouble instead. And here is some audio of a resident of Boston, a resident of that community, and she absolutely torches this council member, a Democrat council member that's standing 3 feet away from her in this interview. Here, check this out.
Lawrence, today he is in Boston, finding out how that city's dealing with the massive increase in immigration, illegal immigration. It's taken over Logan Airport. They're now moved to other centers. Lawrence, there's a lot going on in Boston.
It's crazy out here, Brian. So after sleeping on the floor of Boston Logan International Airport, the migrants are on the move, taking over this recreation center in Roxbury behind me. The complex is a staple of the community for kids to play and seniors to exercise at low cost. Our next guest is not happy with the mayor as she's flooded with the calls from constituents, but she says that she's powerless and it's up to the state. Join us now is the Democrat Boston City Council at large, Aaron Murphy. But first, we're going to go to Effie. Keisha, you know, you were just on the street,
yes,
and I saw your outrage.
Yes.
Why are you outraged?
Because this place was, like you said, it's free. It was a place for our children. I have 4 children, and it's sad. You know, I have 4 boys, you know, and we really don't have nothing in the community that's free for us. Don't get me wrong. It's great that they want to help the immigrants, but what about the Americans that are already here? What about the people that are already here that don't have homes, that don't have jobs, that are sleeping on the street already? These people came from the airport here, probably on boats, probably on buses, and probably all for free. Now they're getting stipends. Yep. They're getting what else?
Yep.
I need money for me and my kids, and I was born here. Like, you know, know, I know life is a struggle in itself, but this is not the answer to help them. Now it's going to destroy our community more and mess our children up more. Like, this is sad. I know a lot of people don't even know about this. I came here last night with my aunt, saw a lot of stadies, a lot of police, and this paper wasn't there yet. They just did this probably 2, 3 in the morning when they brung them here. When everybody sleep, that's when they brung them here probably. On buses, I saw New York plates. I saw Washington, D.C. plates. So they have that much money to come from Washington, D.C. to do this, to do that. Why are they not helping the people here first?
Yes, ma'am.
We need help.
Let's talk to one of the counselors.
Yes.
Aaron, Ms. Murphy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When you hear the passion right here from...
That's what I hear in my office all the time. And it is a balance. Like I was telling you earlier, the state owns this building, so the governor has to make a decision on where to put the overflow migrants. But at the same time, the community needs to make sure that that we keep their services in place.
Why would they declare Boston as a sanctuary city?
I mean, I think a lot of cities across this country once they declare themselves a sanctuary city, I'm not sure if they knew the amount of support we were going to need to give.
Was that, I know you're a Democrat, but do you think declaring cities as sanctuaries was a mistake in retrospect?
Looking back, if our communities end up losing the services they need to live full lives, I think we may be questioning that. We do have to find a balance to make sure that these migrant families have a safe place to go. But at the same time, my concern, I'm an elected official here. I represent the whole city, and I'm the chair of public health in the last 2 years in homelessness. And I've centered my advocacy and policy on making sure that every resident has the resources they need. And I'm hearing that seniors and kids, like Effie was just telling us, that her own family, right, might be disrupted. So I'm making sure that the city is stepping up and connecting with all the departments so that these displaced, residents who use this every day.
Let's bring Keisha back in here. Keisha, you hear that from your counselor. What do you want done right now?
Like she said, we want to help them, but at the same time, what about us that need help here? What about, I'm a mother and I have 4 children. They need help. They need somewhere to go. They need something to do.
What type of activities used to be in this building?
Skating ring, exercising, like a place where you can just go chill and stay out of trouble. Now we have to find other places.
What's going to be the consequence of this being changed and just to migrants? Where are those kids going to go right now?
Probably to the streets.
Yep.
To the streets, where most of them are already at. Like when we look for help, it seems like the state and the governor and them people, they push us away. They want to turn our children to animals. They want our children to be bad and F up. We want better for our community.
That's what it seems like, don't it, folks? It seems like they want this abnormalcy. You see what I was talking about when I said once the people start to see that the Washington establishment does not prioritize them over themselves, they want these divides so that they can run on these issues. Do you think this would have happened if Donald Trump was president? Now, granted, I know he doesn't have power in these states, but I guarantee you it would not be like this, folks. We would not have millions upon millions of illegal immigrants coming into this country, going into these sanctuary cities. This is, again, another disastrous, unintended consequence of Democrats' bad ideas. Okay, consequences that Democrats are never held accountable for. They go from one bad idea to another to another. When this Democrat councilwoman said that, maybe in hindsight, maybe it was a bad idea to create a sanctuary city. Hello, we've only been trying to tell you this since you started making sanctuary cities. It's like, how are you going to do this? The great Milton Friedman once said, pre-1914, we had free immigration. There was no borders. You can come and go as you pleased. But after 1914, what changed? Welfare. And so Milton Friedman said something I'll never forget. He said, it's one thing to have migration for jobs. It's a completely different thing to have migration to welfare. You can have a welfare state or you can have free migration, but you can't have both. And this is exactly why. Because there's just not enough resources, and you exhaust the resources that the American citizens are already putting in. You exhaust the system. Folks, the government does not create anything. It is not a business. It simply takes from one and gives to the other. It transfers wealth. That is it. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't manufacture anything. So if you have a certain amount of people putting money into the pot, and you have open borders and you're allowing everybody and anybody that wants to come in here and take from those resources, you're going to run out eventually. It's like the hole in the pool strategy. A hole in the pool or a hole in the boat is perfectly fine, just so long as you're bailing out the same amount of water that's coming in. You won't sink. But the moment you poke another hole in the boat and you can't bail out that much water, you may be able to stay afloat for a little while, but eventually you're going to sink. This is what we're watching happen all across the country right now as the result of Democrats' bad ideas. Joe Biden's disastrous immigration policy that he started on his first week in office, folks. Don't ever forget that. Donald Trump had this border under control. Was it perfect? No. I don't think anybody will sit there and say that the border crisis, the southern border, was perfect under Donald Trump. But it was pretty damn good, the best we've seen in decades. And what did Joe Biden do? Joe Biden repealed all of Donald Trump's immigration policies his first day in office when he signed executive order after executive order that dismantled and appealed Trump's immigration policies. Stopped the construction of the border wall, stopped the Remain in Mexico, so on and so forth. Over 60 times, the Biden administration has manipulated the federal bureaucracy to open our southern borders. This is purposeful, and everybody sees it. Again, another stark contrast for the American people to look at and to see in order to determine what they want for the future of this country. Do they want 4 years of Donald Trump where you may get some mean tweets, but you're pumping, you're filling your gas tank for $20? Or do you want a unforeseen future and this complete and utter disaster like we're watching right now in this administration? That's why Donald Trump's numbers are going up. The American people get to see the contrast. But there's so much that, into this audio, this resident, this was a Boston resident of a low-income community where her 4 boys were going to this rec center to keep them off the streets. Because when you go into the data, the black minority community accounts for like 35% of the population in this country, but yet they commit almost 50% of the violent crimes. And most of that is black on black crimes, gang shootings, killing one another. And so what is a pretty good stop block to keep that from happening? Well, give them something to do. Keep them busy, keep them occupied with sports or a recreation center that's got a gym, a roller rink. But for these Democrat council people, for this Democrat mayor to go in and take that away, now these boys, these young kids are going to go to the streets. They're going to join gangs. They're going to shoot each other. So the crime rates are going to spike. And so the communities are going to be dangerous and get worse. So these, like I said, this is the trickle-down effect of Democrats' disastrous policy ideas, their disastrous philosophy, and their disastrous policies. Period. This is what they want. And again, they put illegal immigrants above American citizens. Instead of taking a recreation center away from the citizens, the residents of this community, this mayor should have said, Joe Biden, you better shut down that southern border. We can't take any more of these immigrants. But yet none of these Democrats are calling out Joe Biden. It's incredible what these people are willing to do for their party. To put the party over their country is breathtaking to me. And the American people are sick and tired of it. This, folks, I know Republican Party has problems. I know it's filled with a bunch of cowardice rhinos. I get it. The McConnells, the McCarthys, the Cheneys, the Romneys, I get it. They are a bunch of pushovers. They are controlled opposition. Those days are over. The MAGA movement, this movement we're starting to see grow, we're starting to see swell of patriotic Americans who just want to see their country come first for once. This is an incredible movement that's being built with people from both sides, and I can account for that because I used to be a Democrat. But you know the country is heading in the wrong direction when I can be a Democrat and the country, the Democrat Party and the progressives have moved this country so far left that I now find myself on the right of Republicans? And they call us MAGA extremists? To make America great again? What's so bad about it? They don't want pornography in their kids' schools? They want a secure southern border? They want a prosperous economy? They don't want wars all over the world? Like, what is so bad about the MAGA movement? It's not bad. They just want it to appear bad because it's actually normal. It's what a functioning society and a functioning government should want, is normalcy. The Democrats and the progressives have moved this country so far left that people that used to be Democrat are now Republicans. And if you want to stay a Democrat in this environment, you have to support some of the most insane radical stuff we've ever seen in this country. And a lot of the liberals, they'll sit there and deny that it's happening. But you can't deny this now. This is happening. This southern border is a disaster. I mean, there's no fixing this. Not with this administration. And so what do the rhinos do? They put up some amnesty bill? There's no laws or bills that are going to fix this. This is why they hate Donald Trump, because Donald Trump proved to the entire country that you don't need more power. These people don't need more bills. They don't need more laws. They don't need more money. All they have to do is uphold the laws that are on the books already. This is exactly why both sides hate Donald Trump. And it's exactly why I love the guy. I mean, listen, like I said, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If they hate him this much because he's actually getting things done for the American people to actually fix this country, then he's got my vote. And every single person does after this, whether it's Democrat or Republican. I have to say, I'll probably never vote Democrat again in my life unless they make like a major shift. I mean, they would have to, I don't know. But it's because of stuff like this is why this woman, who do you think she's going to vote for? You think she's going to vote for Joe Biden? You think she's going to vote to continue this disastrous 3.5 years? Hell no. I mean, will she vote for Trump? I don't know. But I highly, highly doubt that she is going to go pull that lever for Joe Biden to continue another 4 years of this. That's why Donald Trump's poll numbers are going up. But I wanted to get into the other narratives of the Democrat Party when it comes to the southern border. This talking point that, illegal immigrants into this country, they're beneficial to the United States. They're beneficial because they can pick and cook your food and clean your home and mow your lawn. I mean, it's pretty sad when Democrats use the talking point, oh yeah, well, they can pick and cook your food, they can mow your lawn and clean your house. Like what is this? Like modern day slavery? It is what it is. And that's exactly how Democrats think of these illegal immigrants. It's pretty bad when Democrats delegate illegal immigrants to cooking and picking food and mowing your lawn and cleaning your house. Like, that's pretty bad enough. But to sit there and say that it benefits American workers, it benefits the economy, it's such a garbage talking point, and they know it. But again, they're not in search of the truth. They don't value the truth. They use whatever talking point furthers their agenda. And that's exactly what this talking point is. So I found this great article absolutely debunking the narrative that all this illegal immigration is actually good for America and it helps fight inflation. So this is actually, it's not really an article, it's an op-ed from the Center for Immigration Studies. This actually came out in May of 2023, hat tip to Steven A. Camarota. So it says, due to the border crisis and a rebound in illegal immigration, the foreign-born population has increased by 3.4 million since President Joe Biden took office. And this was back in May of last year, so you can imagine what the numbers are at now. With many of those entering the labor force, economic theory predicts that it will put downward pressure on wages for workers who compete with them for jobs. For years, immigration activists countered that any negative wage impact due to immigration was inconsequential until now. A number of prominent economists and advocacy groups, many of which previously argued that immigration has little or no wage impact, are now calling for more immigration to reduce wages to lower inflation. Seems pretty paradoxical, don't it? To sit there and say, oh, it has almost no effect at all, but now they want more and more of it so that it has an effect? These people, like I said, they don't value the truth, folks. They just say these things so that it furthers their agenda. So former Walmart CEO Bill Simon has complained that the company now has to pay $14 an hour. He has also called for more immigration to reduce wages and lower inflation. There are a number of problems with this increased immigration to reduce inflation argument, but what is perhaps the most striking is that advocates now openly admit that immigration reduces wages for the working class, an idea they used to dismiss. Right there. And so also, they actually want to decrease your wages. So Democrats, the leftist progressive Democrats, for as much as they talk about wanting to tax billionaires and hating the rich, tax the rich, all this stuff, they're actually making the rich richer by allowing them to pay less for work. You see how messed up these people are? This is what happens when you don't follow the truth. This is what happens when you don't value truth and you just use talking points to further a very destructive agenda. Is these same people that hate the rich, want to tax them into oblivion, are actually helping them get richer while simultaneously decreasing the wages for American workers and the wages of illegal immigrants. You see just how counterproductive the progressive movement is, this leftist movement? It's wild and insane to sit there and support wage suppression. So they'll sit there and say, yeah, but they're only picking your food. They're only cooking your food. Without them, these things would be so expensive. Folks, do they ever ask themselves, well, who was doing all this before all this illegal immigration? Who was doing all this before the Biden administration? Before the Biden administration opened up the borders? Americans. Are we to believe that by Americans doing these jobs, it's going to, collapse the entire economy, collapse the system? No. All it's going to mean is that the owners of these farms, the owners of these construction companies, the owners of these landscaping companies, they're going to have to pay higher wages. Never in American history has employers competing for workers been a bad thing for the workers. It always ends up benefiting the workers because they get higher pay when they compete. But now when you have this influx of illegal immigrants that essentially work for pennies on the dollar, there's so much negative stuff that comes from this. Number one, the Democrats have become everything they claim to hate by allowing the business owners and allowing these giant corporations that are hiring this cheap labor to just make more money. Not only that, but now the native-born workers here now have to take lower wages. So it suppresses the wages of American citizens. This is the unintended consequences of Democrats' disastrous philosophy, their bad ideas, their bad policies. And so for the longest time, I find it so funny that this op-ed says that, they used to say this has no impact on wages, and now they're like, oh, bring them in, all the immigration you can get so that it decreases the wages so we don't have to pay as much. And Democrats support this stuff. They have no idea what they support, man. They don't know anything about anything. So the latest immigration advocate to call for more immigration to lower wages is George Mason professor Justin Guest. Drawing on research he did for the immigration advocacy group Forward.us, he recently wrote in the Wall Street Journal that the country needs more immigration to reduce wages and stem inflation in high-growth cities, particularly in sectors such as hospitality and construction. But Forward.us explicitly states on its own website that it is a myth that immigration drives down wages. Guest and Forward.us are not alone in having a change of heart when it comes to the impact of immigration. The National Immigration Forum, another leading advocacy group, now argues wages are too high and that we need more immigration to bring them down, contradicting its prior position that any concerns that immigration reduces wages are, quote, largely overblown. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which used to argue that, quote, data does not support the idea that immigration has a sizable impact on wages, now says that doubling immigration might be the fastest thing to do to impact inflation by keeping wages down. In an article for Foreign Affairs, prominent economists Gordon Hanson and Matthew Slaughter called for significantly increasing immigration to limit wage and price growth and help deflate inflation. Strangely, later in the same article, they state that immigration has only a modest effect on the wages of native-born workers in an interview for NPR. Economist Giovanni Perry argued that more immigration would keep wages down and alleviate inflation. This is in stark contrast to his prior position that immigration's impact on wages was small and on average essentially zero. Apparently, what was once a negligible impact on wages is now a large and desirable one. In truth, there has always been ample evidence that immigration reduces wages. A comprehensive 2016 report by the National Academies of Science cites over a dozen studies showing a negative impact on immigration on wages for competing workers, particularly those with low levels of education. Subsequent research has come to the same conclusion. The only difference now is that inflation is a hot political topic, and immigration advocates are happy to offer their cause as a resolution, even if it contradicts their prior talking points. Inconsistency aside, there is a more basic problem with the argument that expanding immigration can lower inflation. It is grossly impractical that nations' roughly 160 million workers account for about 60% of the economy, while the rest is capital investment. In its analysis, the National Academies assumed that each 1% increase in the supply of immigrant workers reduces wages by 0.3%. So even a sudden 10% increase in the supply of workers, about 16 million new people, or a decade's worth of immigration, could reduce prices by only 1.8%, 60% times 3, and this assumes businesses pass all the savings on to consumers. So imagine that. 16 million new people, Joe Biden, and that's over a decade. Joe Biden has let in, we're looking at what? 8 million people? How many of those are workers? Most of them are young military-aged men. So, of course, the negative wage impact on immigration would be much larger in particular sectors, especially at the bottom end of the labor market. But if the impact is limited to a narrow part of the economy, then the resulting effect on overall consumer prices would be correspondingly smaller. Even if it were practical to lower overall prices in this manner, it would hardly be desirable. Wages for non-college educated workers, who make up the vast majority of the employees in lower-paid jobs, either stagnated or declined in the decades prior to COVID. And in the last year, wages for service workers and other less skilled occupations have generally not kept pace with inflation. Using immigration to reduce wages further for such workers is as regressive a policy as one can imagine. In reality, immigration advocates always call for more immigration. Reducing inflation is simply the latest justification. Revealingly, this time around, they have shifted their arguments and acknowledged that immigration does negatively affect the wages of American workers. So for years, the leftist progressives that support open borders have argued that immigration has no effect on wages. So we can allow as many as we want in, because this expert said it, and this expert said it, and this expert said it. And now that Joe Biden is facing this super high inflation rate and wants to combat inflation, and these people want to justify what Joe Biden's doing at the southern border, and they will say anything to get Joe Biden elected. Now they're saying, oh, well, we need more immigration so that it reduces the prices, so that it reduces wages. It's like, wait a minute, but you've been saying for years, immigration in the workforce doesn't have any impact on wages. And now you're saying we should increase and expand immigration so that it lowers the wages? I mean, this is what we're working with, folks. You cannot have a functioning country, a functioning society that does not value the truth and is willing to say anything it has to in order to get a desired outcome. So Democrats have become everything they claim to hate. They're helping the rich ruling class. They're helping the rich by making them richer, by reducing the wages of workers. This is what they're doing. This is the unintended consequences of their bad ideas. They make low-income communities less safe by shutting down rec centers, and so that now all these black minority kids, they go out and they start shooting each other and join gangs because they have nothing else to do, because the state and the government and the Biden administration took over the rec center in order to house illegal immigrants. And none of these Democrat mayors or governors are putting any of the blame on Joe Biden. It's like, oh, we got to pass more laws. We got to pass policy. We need more power. No, you don't. Donald Trump proved that in the 4 years he was president, when he gave us the best southern border this country's seen in 5 decades. So all this stuff is a bunch of baloney. These people are liars. They'll never tell you the truth. And this is what we have to deal with, and this is what we have to combat. So to go back to the initial story of Darren Beattie and the polls of Donald Trump, this is exactly why Donald Trump's poll numbers are going up. And I cannot wait for all of this stuff to blow up in their faces. All this lawfare that they used, this election interference strategy by weaponizing the justice system against Joe Biden's political opponents. And to go back to my original theory, I would not put it past these people to create a broader conflict in the Middle East in order to get Joe Biden elected, in order to get Joe Biden across the finish line. I can't prove it, but I'm telling you right now, I would not put it past these people to do something like that. So this is it, folks. That is the talking point of the left, that all this illegal immigration doesn't reduce wages. But now that wages are too high and the rich billionaires that the Democrats supposedly hate and want to tax to oblivion are asking for more immigrants to reduce wages. It's crazy, man. We're dealing with some pretty insane stuff. So I'm going to leave all this. I'm going to leave all the research material in my podcast description so you guys can go ahead and take a look at it. I want you to read this op-ed, read these other articles that I didn't have a chance to get into. The New York Times article. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll just do it on the next segment. That's what I'll do. So on the next segment, I want to get into the differences between asylum seekers, refugees. I want to get into the hard facts and data about what is happening at the southern border. So that my listeners are well prepared for this battle. It's go time, folks. There's no time to sit and be polite and not, talk about politics at dinner, to not talk about politics with your colleagues. By all means, talk about this stuff. It is time for people to hear the truth. It is time for people to hear that allowing millions of immigrants into their country is going to reduce workers' wages. Like, it is time for these people to hear the truth about what's happening in these low-income communities because Joe Biden opened the southern border and how the crime rates are going to go up. I can't imagine some of these low-income communities having an even bigger increase in crime. It is going to look like something out of like an apocalypse, man. It's going to look like something that on that movie, The Road. Like, we can't, it's so dysfunctional, man. The whole system's dysfunctional. We can go on and talk about it forever. I can rant on this stuff for hours. It's dysfunctional, folks, and this is why the poll numbers are going up for Donald Trump, is because people are starting to realize this. Unfortunately, it took 4 years of hell in order for people to realize it, but I guess better later than never. I'm not going to fault these people for leaving the Democrat Party. That's for sure. Trust me. I used to be one. I know how it feels. You're in this situation, but eventually you just have to accept the truth that these people, their ideas are not just bad, but they're dangerous. They're very destructive policy ideas. Not all Democrats. I want to make that clear. I'm not talking about all Democrats. There are still some sane, rational Democrats out there, which I think most of them are, if they're sane and rational, probably going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm talking about the leftist, progressive, Marxist, radical Democrats. The people that are chanting pro-Hamas stuff, the people that are saying river to the sea, Palestine will be free, those people. Those aren't MAGA hat wearing supporters out there chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Those are Democrats, radical Democrats. And so I guess next segment, I'll get into the details behind the southern border. I have this article from the New York Times that talks about the immigration and the asylum laws that were changed by Joe Biden his first year in office, what it means, the difference between asylum seekers and refugees. What is all this stuff? The rules for asylum seekers. Everybody knows that there is no such thing as claiming asylum for work. It just doesn't work that way. And there's also no such thing as claiming asylum in Haiti and then walking into the United States. No, you have to claim asylum in the country next to where you reside. And so we're going to get into all this stuff, all the details about how these people are doing it, who is helping them, like the NGOs that are making billions of dollars and being subsidized by the government in order to assist in helping these immigrants into what to say in order to get across, in order to get through our loopholes and get through the immigration process, all of that stuff. We'll save that for the next segment because there's no way I can get into it now. There's a lot of stuff I want to get into. So make sure you follow the show. I'm going to leave all my research materials for this show in the podcast description. Make sure you guys go there, check it out, share it with your friends and family. Also, if you could, I'd appreciate it, share this show with your friends and family. And per usual, if you could, I'd appreciate it. You followed the show on Rumble, and the show is on YouTube as well. But I would rather people start migrating to Rumble. So, but you can find the show on both Rumble and YouTube. Follow. I'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment. If you're listening to this on YouTube right now, smash the like button. Leave a comment. Leave some feedback. I'd really appreciate it. And most of all, share the show with your friends and family. Inform them, because informed people make the best decisions and uninformed people make bad decisions. And I think that's what we've been experiencing for the last 3.5 years, is just one bad decision after another. So informed citizenry is the only way to have a proper functioning government and society. So, and a society that has oversight of the government. That's a necessity as well. And I also found a really cool article about hydrogen cars and how GM is shifting from EV batteries to hydrogen fuel cells. This is pretty insane technology, and it's coming up quick, folks. This is kind of came out of nowhere. And I mean, there's cars already on the road with this technology. So I want to get into that and how it works. And there's two differences between hydrogen fuel cell and then hydrogen fuel cell EV. So I want to get into both of those, how it works, the process behind it. Listen, folks, we got all kinds of stuff to talk about. There is no shortage of news cycle. There's no shortage of material about what is happening in our current culture and society and our politics. So make sure you tune into the next segment, and we'll talk about as much as we can. And then we'll just carry on to the next segment. That's how we're going to do it. So, as always, I appreciate you guys listening to the show. If you want to get a hold of me, Steven Tauriello Show at gmail.com. That's TAURIELLO at gmail.com. And I will talk to you guys soon. I want you guys to have a good day. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.